There's funky agenda. You print them out from the way they come on.
Good.
Looks easy.
Looks like we're all here.
They're kind of weird.
Oh, I think we're all here.
Thank you, Mayor. For tonight's work session, Richmond Homes has requested a concept plan presentation to the town board for the 15-acre piece of property that they currently own at the corner of McCaslin and Colton Road. Included in your packet was concept plan site layout that they had put together for the board to look at. Currently, the property is zoned Community Activity Center within the Rock Creek Ranch PUD, which is basically zoning for a small neighborhood-scale retail and commercial. Their concept plan that they included in the packet shows residential, which I'll ask them to come up and present to you and answer any questions, but 38 lots, residential, single-family, with 3 acres put aside for the town for community purpose that we would determine at some point in the future. So with that, I'll introduce Linda Purdy and David Foster with Richmond Homes and ask them to give a presentation.
Great. Well, thanks, Shamat. And first of all, I just want to appreciate and thank Matt and Beth for had a couple of meetings up here and really appreciate their guidance on the process. My name is David Foster. I'm a local land use attorney with the firm. Been practicing for about 15 years, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight on behalf of Richmond to talk about this particular project. It's normally the case that I am representing developers in their endeavors to rezone or put together a development agreement. I do also serve as the assistant city attorney to Cherry Hills Village, which I started doing about 3 years ago with a colleague of mine, Ken Feldman. And probably because representing developers for a living, you're not necessarily going to go to heaven. So figured I might want to represent cities on occasion. So with me tonight is Linda Purdy, and she's Vice President of Land Acquisitions for Richmond, Colorado Division, and Dan Conway is a principal with THK Associates. They're a market and economic research firm that I've had the experience of working with for a long time now. And what I want to do, and I plan to not spend very much time talking, because I think tonight is really about listening to feedback from the Board of Trustees. You've got a significant investment in this site and obviously in your community, and so we want to hear really from you. But candidly, this is really a great accommodation that the town provides to us. And there are very few communities, I will tell you, in the Front Range that actually make this kind of an accommodation. Broomfield's the only other community that I can readily think of that allows a developer or user to kind of come in front of the board early on in the process, kind of stick their toe in the water, get a sense of what the community's thoughts are before they invest, gobs of money and become even more entrenched in what they're intending to do. So it really is a great accommodation, and you should be thanked for that. The other thing that I want to make really, really clear is that we haven't reached out at all to the local community. There's a community that's impacted more than any others, and we'll walk through the site plan in a second. And I just wanted to let you all know that part of our meeting tonight wasn't to come with a petition signed by a bunch of neighbors saying we support this rezoning. We know it'll take work. We know that there's going to need to be some reach out into the community to kind of address whatever their concerns are. And I don't know, and Linda doesn't know exactly all of the concerns that the neighbors may have. I mean, kind of been down the road of rezoning an infill site before, so I can anticipate some of the concerns, but every community is different. And so just one of the takeaways that I want the board to understand and know is that we feel like this is an iterative process, and we plan on moving forward in that fashion if we get the appropriate feedback tonight. So the status quo, why this particular project, why now? Linda had approached me probably about 8 or 9 months ago to talk about this particular site and whether or not there was any opportunity to do something with the site. Obviously, as you guys know better than I do, the site was annexed, zoned into the city back in 1987, and your permits started getting pulled back in 1990. So this is a 25-year project, and there were some assumptions, obviously, back in the day. I believe that the west side of McCaslin was going to, I wouldn't say mimic, but there was certainly a plan that the other side of McCaslin was going to be developed into more of a community, which candidly made this particular corner a really viable corner for commercial activity, and it makes a lot of sense. But times change, and obviously a lot has happened, not only to the town, but to the marketplace. And obviously the open space being purchased, it was a big factor as well that really changed the dynamic for that particular site. So when Linda approached me, I try and do a little balancing act. A client approaches me, they have a piece of ground, they want to figure out what the highest and best use is. And really, I feel like it's my obligation as their counsel to figure out, well, notwithstanding the fact that a developer is trying to maximize their property, we've got a community interest. And there's really no better place to begin to kind of understand that than with your own comprehensive plan. So, I get to spend time reading and reviewing your comprehensive plan. And obviously, I think every community does a fine job of trying to reflect the interests and needs of their community, and this is a terrific document, and I'm going to kind of identify certain areas within your comprehensive plan that I think are probably relevant for tonight's conversation. But in making the decision to move forward with this particular project as opposed to developing it as a community, as a commercial center, what I felt we also really needed to do was take an objective.
Yes, he totally agreed with you. Yeah, right.
We needed to, in my estimation, take as much of an objective view of the viability of that site. And so that's when we went ahead, Richmond, my client, went ahead and engaged THK Associates and asking Dan to be as objective as possible. We weren't trying to direct him to get to an answer, but hey, what do you view as the future viability of this site for commercial use? And so in his review, and we put an executive summary into the packet, and Dan is here to answer any of the really detailed questions about where he ultimately derives his answers in that executive summary. And there's obviously a 35-page report that accompanies that executive summary. But we said, give us your sense of the existing conditions. And so you'll see in that executive summary, I felt like the highlight or the low light, perhaps, of that summary is really the third paragraph that discusses what it'll take in terms of time to normalize the retail marketplace to 7.5%, which I understand is normalization of a retail marketplace. What you've got in this primary trade area is a vacancy rate that hovers around 15%. And that may not come as a surprise to anybody. Kind of came as a surprise to me. I thought that was quite high. And the other part of it that surprised me is when I went back and looked at the comprehensive plan, a portion of this which was done back in 2006 had identified, you had done a study of a primary trade area. It's a slightly different trade area than we studied. You included Boulder, and our city did not. But the retail vacancy rate at the time that this study was commissioned and your comprehensive plan was done was between 2% and 4% in terms of retail vacancy. So some things have changed in the marketplace, and I think we know that. I'm somewhat surprised by the significance of the change, but I guess we're here on Cyber Monday, and things do change, and the way in which people purchase goods and services is different, and notwithstanding the fact that the economy itself is different. So we have this, and Dan is available to answer any questions that you may have. So recognizing that we could be sitting on a piece of ground, and in fact, you can press Dan on the following question: when do you think a viable commercial retail facility will be built on that site? I've asked him that question several times. He's refused to give me a very specific answer. I can tell you that he won't pin a time down, at least in the next couple of decades. So we're talking about something that really isn't viable today. So then the question turns to, well, what does work and what could work within the community? And that's where I wanted to kind of direct your attention to 3 goals that I had seen in the comprehensive plan. And the first is goal number 1 under land use, which is to ensure a balanced system of land uses that maintains and enhances Superior's identity as a diversified community, offering a wide variety of residential opportunities. Commercial districts that include unique niche, local, and regional draws, and civic facilities that serve the residents, business owners, and property owners of the town. I'm going to come back to the diversity or the wide variety of residential opportunities in 1 second. And the second goal, actually goal number 2, is to ensure a balanced community of safe, friendly, interactive, and cohesive residential neighborhoods that incorporate publicly accessible open lands, parks, trail systems, and public amenities. And then, goal 19, which I felt was also valuable, and that's to ensure all town residents have access to a community center. So when we read the variety of different goals within the comprehensive plan, we started to think about the way in which it would make sense to lay out a residential community that identified and provided for a mix of uses, or a diversification of use. And really, I will tell you, in all candor, this concept of a community center is a bit of luck. That it wasn't necessarily in our minds to kind of design a 3-acre site on the corner there to provide for a community center. But sometimes things happen for different reasons, and we were given a great connection to Mr. Colon to talk about the possibility of a community center, and it kind of got our minds working about how can we provide for both a public amenity and a new residential subdivision, and can they kind of live in a positive way together there. So what we've done, and I know that you all have copies of this in your packet, and it may be a little bit hard to see here. It's a little easier to see now. So you'll have to trust me that there are 38 home sites within this plan. Yes? Oh, okay. Okay. So there are 38 home sites within this plan, accessing off of Colton right here and off of McCaslin here. And you'll notice that along McCaslin, we didn't purposely face the fronts or backs of any of the homes to McCaslin. That's a pretty unique and kind of special corridor, and so added the landscaping, along McCaslin, so that it kind of integrated along that stretch. And then this particular access would jointly access both the subdivision And what we're just kind of, and we just, again, in all candor, we just put kind of a building on that site so that it could at least, so you could see how a potential building would fit on that site. And that would be joint access again off of Colton. We had originally thought of adding an access point here, but that roundabout makes it a little bit difficult for a right in and right out. I'm not a traffic consultant, but just recognizing the close proximity to that roundabout may present a problem. So that was the design that we ended up with. Now, I will tell you, when we presented this particular plan to Matt and Beth a couple of weeks ago, it's these 8 homes right here. I know I'm blinking, but those 8 homes right there were the ones that I think we all identify as being the most impactful to the existing subdivision, without a doubt. And so Linda kind of went back to her folks and got an agreement from them that the homes that would back up to the existing subdivision would all be ranch-style homes. And so that, in a sense, was a way to kind of accommodate the existing condition, because we're not going to do anything about the existing condition. We have a subdivision there that was one of the earlier subdivisions. But to the extent that the homes that back onto that subdivision could be ranches that allow for more opportunities to kind of see into the open space, that made a lot of sense. So I can tell you that without meeting with the neighbors, one of the accommodations that we've started to talk about is the commitment to at least do 8 ranch homes within the subdivision on those 8 lots, which is an example, again, of the kind of the iterative process that when you're going through an infill development, you have to be prepared to discuss. It also allows, and I've made reference to this a couple of times, but it allows for the dedication to the town of this whole site. And it seemed, again, from some of Linda's conversations, that there really may be an interest in a community center, or at least some kind of a public amenity at that particular location. So this affords the town an opportunity to have that site at its disposal to do what it feels is the most important. And then, again, a little bit more feedback that we had gotten was the trailhead across the street is starting to feel some pressures of parking. And so what we did was we went back to our land planner, and this site originally showed about 60 or so parking spaces, and we said, can we do better? And now there are about 115 parking spaces. Now, again, we just stuck a box on a site, but we didn't reduce the size of that particular box, and we're able to accommodate more parking to the extent, again, I don't know that this is a hot button issue for the community or not, wanting at least to recognize that there may be a way to accommodate what may be a future pressure point across the street with your trailhead. I'm done with kind of our presentation. I think some of it speaks for itself. Again, delighted to be here, and we really want to be listeners and hear what some of your questions and concerns might be going forward.
Great, thanks so much. Questions from the board? Well, Chris?
Question on the size of the community center. Is that 114,000 square feet of the center or the lot that it's on?
The lot size.
What would be the proposed? I know you just dropped it in there, but what do you anticipate the size of that community center being?
It was sketched out at 15,000 square feet, and that was based
I'm sorry,
on feedback.
if you wouldn't mind terribly.
The illustrative community center was sketched out at approximately 15,000 square feet, and that was just based on my conversations with Kevin in terms of what he felt the community needs were, somewhere between 15 and 20,000 So we wanted to see how that would scale given the carve-out of the approximate 3 acres.
Okay, so that didn't come from other communities of about the same size?
No, that was just pure feedback,
Okay.
and again, just for illustrative purposes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, I have a few, so maybe this is for staff, but what would be the anticipated use of a community center of that size in that location? Do you have a feeling about that?
No, I think, well, if this is something that has come out of their meetings with Kevin's group. He's got a group that, of residents, residents and business people in the community that have been meeting to see how they could, start the grassroots for a community center. So, it really hasn't got, they're just ideas that's been thrown out there, nothing. What we'd have to do, I think, if we started planning for something like this is to have community meetings, get ideas from the public, what they'd like to see there. Is it just meeting rooms? Is there a recreation component? Is it, classrooms? Those type of things would need to be figured out.
In similarity, what would be the add of that site compared to what's either at the meeting space in the fire station or in the anticipated ICE facility? I mean, you probably can't answer this question, so
Well,
I don't mean to be putting you on the
No,
spot, but I'm
that's
just
fine.
trying to identify what this would be doing compared to what other sites would be.
Well, those two sites that you mentioned at the fire station and at the proposed ICE facility, the one at the ICE facility is just mainly going to be, I think, conference room type area that people can use for different community meetings they might have. And then the fire station one is a training room for them that they plan on using for training for their department, but then the community can use for birthdays or, there's other community groups that want to meet there, the HOA or, somebody like that can use that room for that purpose. And I think they're going to, have birthday parties there and stuff. But this could be, whatever we decide as a community we would like to have there. I mean, it could have a recreation component to it, doesn't have to. I mean, it could be used for other groups to use the space. So it's completely open right now, what it could be used for.
As far as the Boulder Valley ICE community center or meeting space or whatever that would be, that isn't actually planned out, correct? I mean, it's an idea, but it's not a
They have preliminary
planned.
plans. Oh, yeah. They have preliminary plans.
So how do they know what our community needs for that
Well, we
that
just
area?
identified through our discussions with them that we would like to have some kind of community meeting space, and that's what they provide.
I understand that, but
It's
I'm
their-
saying what
they-
kind of uses are needed, and have we determined? I mean, as I understand, there's been no determination with the Boulder Valley ICE what we're using that space for at this time. Am I right?
It's solely community meeting space. That's it. Their primary purpose for their facility is ICE, and they're going to have some indoor field use. And then they have a restaurant bar in there and a retail shop, and then they have this community meeting space,
Okay.
along with their
I'll
office.
just make this broader then.
Uh-huh.
How we use that space has not been determined, correct? I mean, it's just some space.
Yeah, the answer
In our
is
thoughts.
correct.
Okay.
Nothing's been presented to the board, and I'm sure that
No,
we could
yeah.
direct them to whatever we felt was reasonable within their financial capacity.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Okay. Try to be helpful whenever possible. Just to change gears then slightly, so has anybody looked at the traffic flow through here? It seems like with how the roads are lined up, this might be somewhat problematic for residential traffic. Have you thought about that, or perhaps you guys have?
Yeah, we have. Actually, the amount of traffic that's generated from 38 homes is far less than what would be generated for a retail center. Now, of course, this is a little bit more realistic in terms of real traffic, because, as I said, that commercial retail opportunity is really far off. But
Yeah.
in terms of actual traffic impacts, it's far less. I would have to guess, and I'm just taking a wild stab here, that we'd have to do a traffic study in order to rezone a site, so you'd be able to see what the actual impacts are.
Right. I guess my issue was not so much the amount of traffic being generated, but how people would actually get in and out of that with sight lines and the proximity to the roundabout. And I think that there's actually a median on Colton right now.
Well, in this particular location, to the best of my knowledge, there's no median right there, which would provide the access into the subdivision. And then this is the other point of access into the subdivision. So, I mean, they're far enough removed from the roundabout, at least this particular access point is far enough removed from the roundabout. This one, again, I don't have a scale, but that certainly looks like it's probably more than 600 or so feet, which, you know, is what traffic consultants usually look for between intersections.
I guess if this were to come forward, that would be a concern of mine to make sure that that was safe traffic movement, especially getting across McCaslin there. We have a hard enough time as it is in some locations and trying to get across the
I mean, getting
turning
a
left.
left turn here.
Correct.
Well, that might end up being a restricted turn. I mean, I don't know what happens there, but I think that's a fair comment. There may just be that may ultimately, developers hate to hear this, but that may just ultimately be a right in, right out, because that's the safest movement.
Okay. And what would be the setback of the houses 1 through 8?
Oh, back here?
Uh-huh. I mean, if you look at the map, obviously the setbacks for those houses in that area, you can see a green strip of that
Yeah.
same amount. Are you anticipating it to be that width or something
Yeah.
different?
So what's interesting about these homes, if I'm not mistaken, just kind of cut me off, but there's more depth to these 8 lots are bigger than the lots here, and they get a lot of their additional square footage from the depth. So I think these are in fact 10 feet longer than, at a minimum, than what's on the backside. So, yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good point and an issue for us to discuss is how best to accommodate the landscaping treatment back there. Whether or not it's done with a setback requirement, on those 8 lots, whether it's done with a landscaping requirement on those 8 lots, whether it's an open space corridor. Again,
Sure.
There's enough space, and really to your answer, there is enough space within the depth of those lots to make an appropriate landscaping accommodation.
The additional depth of those lots, just for informational purposes, the dimensions are roughly 61 feet wide by 110 feet deep. Some of the lots are deeper than that. That was intentional. With a proposed plan lineup to include ranch plans, we wanted that additional depth so we could still have usable backyards and whatnot. Because ranch plans tend to be deeper than your traditional 2-story type models.
My only thinking, I guess this is more getting into a comment, would be that there's a lot of pedestrian transportation corridors through there, and it would be not committing one way or the other towards your plan, but if it were to come to into being, that I would want to make sure that there was a sidewalk probably behind those houses so school kids could access the community trails.
We could certainly take that into consideration. One of the things is they could certainly use the sidewalks that are afforded within the community. If you have the existing houses that are fenced, then you have new houses that are fenced with a sidewalk in between them, that can cause a concern for parents and whatnot using and accessing that trail for their kids to go to school. It creates a tunnel effect, and there's not a lot of visibility in that.
Right, although you'll notice that there are sidewalks in at least one location there that runs right behind those houses. So that's the concept I believe I was looking at.
You're talking about up here?
Right.
Understood.
Okay. Other questions
Yeah,
or
just
comments?
another question on, it wasn't real clear in the executive summary on who pays for and builds the community center. Is that part of the developer? The developer would do that?
No, that is.
So that would be a spot that'd be left open and we would have to build that if we wanted.
Yeah, the proposal is to dedicate the site, the 3 acres, to the town,
Okay.
for you to do as you see fit. But the proposal isn't to build a facility as well.
Thank you.
I think maybe, unless there's other, yeah, I mean, maybe Mr. Colon would be able to speak to what the purpose of what he would see the community center would look like, if that's fair.
It's okay. Kevin Cologne, I don't know if I even have to do this in a work session.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. I think I've spoken to many of you guys along the years about, just the dream of having a place where students can come after school, where neighbors can sit and chat, where gatherings of, groups of larger than 50 and 100 could get together for weddings, for receptions, for bar mitzvahs, all kinds of different things that we could use a community building for. And so whenever, through the years, there's actually been 2 or 3 groups of people that have gotten together to try to move something like this forward from a community perspective. Along the way, we've thought about a lot of different things and a lot of different ways to do it, and none of them have materialized. And then all of a sudden it came up again. Just some community leaders started getting together and saying, what do you think our community needs? And again, a community center, a place where people can gather, a place where a community can happen. And so whenever we started thinking about this, obviously then we started bringing, dialoguing with some of the trustees, with some of the town, with some of the other leaders, and they said, well, a possibility might be this Richmond area. And so one of my joys is to get people together to work together to try to make things happen. And so we just pitched the idea, what if, we dedicated something like this? And then so, again, the uses would be, a place for kids to come after school, so some dedicated youth space, some dedicated children's space, maybe even a coffee shop in there, maybe some business space where, people that work from home can actually have a little cubicle or an office that they could rent out or use. Again, what 15,000 square feet can afford us, how many things we could do, we don't know. I mean, obviously, if it was me, and I've told Linda this, give us 5 acres, give us 10 acres, and let's build something that's amazing, that can really be, a flagship type of community center for our town. And of course, they have to, make ends meet from their perspective from a business. So other things that have come up in the middle of it is that we've got so many groups in our town, Cub Scouts, Courageous Change, school groups, private groups, obviously church groups that could use a facility like this for a lot of different things. Even beyond that, a central place for people to get together if there is a disaster or a need. Remember when we had the fire at the apartments not too long ago, and we were trying to find a centralized place where we could get people and goods together so that we could help our community. And we thought, it'd be great to have a central place to do that. Maybe a little warehouse spot where, we could store food or clothing or even furniture, for people in need. So, I think the possibilities are endless for a community center like this. And recreational, could be a part of it, but obviously we've got so much recreational around us that I think there's other needs that we could probably put in front of that to meet some of that. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Obviously that's just a whiteboard kind of perspective, and I agree with Matt. This is about getting the town together and neighbors together to say, what do we really need? And then how do we really build it? How does the town come? Private businesses come, private entities as far as neighbors come to do this as a community effort.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. Anybody else want to speak to that particular issue?
Hi guys, David Manshore, know most of you here, Cub Scout leader, neighbor, very actively involved in Kevin's working group. So I guess at the risk of sounding redundant, from my perspective, and I know Kevin said that he and a number of others have started this a few other times, I've gotten involved with this. I've done this before. I've done this, my wife and I, Kristen, we came from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I made either the unfortunate or the fortunate mistake of raising my hand at a homeowners association meeting, and I said, there's no park here. There's no park. There's nowhere for my kids to play. There's nowhere. And the president of the HOA said, what's your name? I said, Dave. He said, congratulations, Dave. you're in charge of Parks and Recreation for our homeowners association. So, long story short, 5 years down the road, I went through all the mistakes and did all the due diligence and everything that I could, and it got built. So Santa Fe is a very interesting place where it's very community-centric and it's very historical, and there are a lot of historical youth, family concerns. We took all of that into account. We're bringing that to this working group, but we're bringing all of this with the hopes that, as I do informal polling in even Clayton Circle where I live, and a lot of the neighborhood and the 90 families that I'm with in Cub Scouts, what do you think is missing here in Superior? Community center, a place to gather, one place that represents everybody's interests, one place where we can have meetings, one place where the kids can go, one place for teenagers. There's no place for teens to go. They'll hang out in the back of the Rock Creek Pizza and kind of chat and do their thing at the ball fields. But, this is something that I have done informal polling on. And one last point, I'm actually a former member of the NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. I was a field lobbyist. So what we did is we focused, third largest lobby in the country, focusing on the needs of small business owners. I traveled from Sterling to Fort Collins, down to Denver and Colorado Springs, and I met with small business owners over and over, and I saw community after community after community. You guys have all seen the studies. You know what they look like. A thriving community involves economic development, retail, and a place for communities to gather. We didn't make up this model. You know what I mean? And I can speak for Kevin. I look at the people that are now in this working group, and there are a lot of great minds, a lot of great energy, and a lot of great things. So we're for this. We're for, informally, as a neighbor, as a Rock Creek resident, we want to see Richmond come in and do this. They often say, if we knew then what we know now, things would be different. Well, 10 years later, here's our chance to say, well, we know what everybody's about. We know each other, and we can take care of any mistakes that were done in the past. And I think this is a great opportunity for Richmond to make good on some things for us. And I think it's to be a start of a reinvigorated relationship. So at least some of the folks in Clayton Circle and around are definitely in favor of this, and I'm looking forward to making this happen.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to speak to this particular issue?
I'm Bob Herman, 503 North Snowmass Circle. And first of all, I'm not at all opposed to a community center. However, Richmond American, in my mind, has not been a responsible corporate citizen. Forgive me for saying that. I tried to find out how many homes you've had to repair. You would not give me an answer. So I will make an assumption. I will make an assumption that there are 500 homes in Rock Creek.
Could you, I'm sorry, would you mind
some
me?
level of,
Yeah, just into the mic, in case anybody's watching.
500
Yeah,
homes in
please.
Rock Creek that require some level of repair. In my case, I'm still arguing, debating with Residential Warranty Company. We're at 120,000 and climbing. Okay, I'm going to use mine as an average at this point. I'm going to even cut it a little lower, say it's 100,000. Let's take 500 homes, 100,000. That's $50 million. That's in Richmond's pocket. Now, if you folks want to go ahead with this, this is fine. Either find a responsible developer or have Richmond put up a $50 million surety bond. That's where I'm coming from, because I don't trust Richmond. This is a bone they're throwing at us. That's all it is. And from my perspective, you need to have some kind of financial backing to take care of the problems after Richmond leaves. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Other board questions or comments? Sandy?
Thank you, Kevin and David, for the enthusiasm about a community center. I think that is, I've been on the board for, Chris, how long has it been, a year and a half? Yeah. And certainly that is the common thing that keeps coming our way. community center, community gathering place, and it has, all kinds of connotations. I mean, it could be huge, it could be smaller. When this plan came before us, I see very little emphasis on the community center aspect of it and a lot of emphasis on the Richmond aspect of it. And frankly, I was a little surprised at that. I would have liked to have seen come forward to us some real detail about what your working group has bandied about as to what would be useful in a community center. I would have liked to have seen the emphasis on the community center. I'm very, very uncomfortable at this point linking the community's need for a community center with yet more single-family residential development, and particularly, I'm very aware of the problems of which Bob spoke, particularly one that puts Richmond front and center. So I would like to see these two issues separated. I think right now they need to be disconnected. The merits of a community center need to be addressed separately from the merits of 38 more single-family homes. I noticed, Dan, I think, Dan, you wrote the executive summary, am I right? It deals with basically the oversupply of retail, but it never goes into the oversupply of single-family residential, particularly in this economic climate. Do we need more single-family homes? Do we need more residential at all? And if we need more residential, what form would that take? Deborah and I are on DRCOG, and certainly the issue there is the aging of America and the need for more senior services and more senior living amenities. So at this point in time, my view is these are two separate, discrete issues. One is the residential aspect of it, and one is the community center aspect. And I love the enthusiasm on the community center aspect and would really encourage your group to put flesh on the bones of that. Pie in the sky. There are no bounds at this point as to what would be the perfect community center for the town. So I'd really welcome that discussion.
Deborah?
So I personally would like that entire property to be a community center. Pie in the sky, exactly. I feel that we have plenty of the same housing product, and if we were to rezone this from commercial, it would have to be, in my mind, a completely different housing product that we do not have, which would be, anywhere in the realm of senior living, patio homes. I can't think of half of the different kinds of homes, but something that we don't have. And single-family homes is something we have a lot of, too much. So I personally would like, either we keep this zoned as it is and move towards a community center, or look at, other types of housing, especially senior. But that's how I see what we need in our community.
Other questions or comments? Well, so I guess you can be pie in the sky, with the exception pie in the sky comes with a dollar figure attached to that. So so long as we have a financial reality check somewhere along the way, then that will be okay. We don't have any dedicated revenue stream that the town could be building something like this, and the operations and maintenance associated with it. So, when we start thinking about that, before we go too bold, we need to make sure we understand what we're getting into. So,
may I ask Matt one question? On an infill, for this. Let's say at some point in time it were rezoned for some unmet housing need in this community. Does that developer have to then donate or dedicate any of that land to open space?
Yeah,
Or-
we have an open space dedication.
And what is that percentage?
I think it's 35%.
I guess it's 30, 35.
So is this area dedicated to town center, to that community center here, their open space, their dedication requirement?
It may go a portion to that, but they have,
Right.
area to the east there that would also be included.
Okay, just to be clear on it, though, is this a requirement of the development, or is this, it,
No, I mean, this 3 acres isn't, it's, no, I would
well,
say.
30% of 15 is 4.5 acres. So if the requirement, dedication requirement is 4.5 acres, and this is 3 acres,
Can I try to address that question? From my understanding, and I think it's worth certainly a little bit more research, is there's an existing annexation agreement that, my understanding, happened to take into consideration, all of the open space, all of the school acreage, all of those kinds of community amenities at kind of a more global level as opposed to on a site-specific level. So my guess, and I'm happy to follow up and do the necessary research and talk with Matt about this, but my guess is that the annexation agreement already accounts for the open space requirements. Because if this site were to be developed as community commercial, there wouldn't be a open space requirement that is the responsibility of the developer, because it's presumably already accommodated for. Your question is a slight deviation from that, because you now, as the Board of Trustees, are being asked to do something different than what already exists in the annexation agreement, because you've already zoned the site. Does that mean that you have some purview to be making requests? I think so. But I don't know that there would be the same kind of mandate. I think that's part of what could be negotiated, is again, my guess.
well, the clarity I'm seeking is, obviously, you're proposing it not be commercial. You're proposing it be residential. And my understanding is with residential development comes some other requirements, and I'd like to know what those other requirements are.
And we can get that for the board. And David's right. Since it's within the Rock Creek Ranch PUD, it has a different set of requirements and standards that, lot sizes and that type of thing that have to be met, which, Fred probably knows better than I do, but we can get that for the board.
Ilya?
So, thank you for your presentation. I've been participating in the discussions with this wonderful group of leaders of Superior, with Kevin and Dave and Heather and a few other people. So I think we have a lot more specific things in mind that were not present here today, and I think it would be worth it in the future to maybe spend 15, maybe half of a work session and present that in more detail, kind of to enlighten the community. As far as the homes are concerned, Rock Creek has over 2,000 homes, right? More or less?
Yes.
3,000 homes?
It's like
What's up?
2,700.
2804, something like that.
2,800 homes? All right. So, seriously, adding 38 more homes is not going to make or break this community. I think Rock Creek is a great place to live. To add 38 more families to our town would not have, the kind of impact that we're talking about. I think there would be, I know myself personally, 4 or 5 families that would love to move to Rock Creek, honestly. So I would welcome, having 38 more homes. I guess the idea, though, originally was with our group is that if we were to invite a developer to come and build these homes, that they would also build the community center. And I don't know if that's asking too much, we're talking about financially, can the town really do this or not, but that would be like, okay, how can we make this a win-win? And I don't think just donating or dedicating 3 acres is enough of an incentive, but anyway, that's my personal opinion. We've talked about it before with the group, and there's definitely a need, and if this is one way to make it happen, I would certainly consider it very seriously.
Maybe donating 15 acres might work?
It's like, yeah. Right.
Other thoughts? Can I just share some thoughts? So,
Sure, the mayor.
well, sometimes I wonder. Let's see. So my thoughts on this is I think that commercial is never going to be viable there.
Right.
So we need to have ongoing conversations about this, because otherwise it's just going to be a dust field for forever, because it doesn't make any sense to have commercial on that site when I think you already indicated, with the town center infill with, 250,000 square feet of additional retail. How could that possibly compete? I can't see that would be the case after. I think you also brought it up when there was development anticipated on the west side of McCaslin. Sure, it might have made sense then, and I think that's how it was planned out, and it probably was why it was master planned this way. That's not going to happen, and so once again, I think that we need to look realistically what's going to happen with that property. So I, for one, am happy to look at a rezoning of that. What it looks like exactly, that's where the difficulty is. So my particular thinking is that it might make sense to have this, the community group that's meeting regarding this, figure out exactly what is needed, understand what the finances of that are, and then have some more conversation regarding the site. It just seems like before looking into a rezoning, I think we're probably a little too far. That's a little too far into the future to be able to predict what would happen there. So, just my personal thoughts.
Just a quick comment. I want to thank the group that has put this together, and I hope you guys keep moving forward. And this is a really good first start, so keep it going.
I ditto that, and I also wanted to piggyback on what your comments were. And also, we should go back and figure out what is needed as far as types of housing. Do we really need single-family homes? Yeah, it'd be nice to have 38 more families there, but wouldn't it be nice if it was senior living or patio homes or a different option available for families? So I'd like to know what the town needs before we jump into 38 single-family homes. But definitely the community center. No.
That's the driver. I mean, honestly, that is the driver.
Sandy.
No question.
And I would extend that comment. It is all about determining what the community needs. And that may not be homes. That may be playing fields. We've had discussions in the past with some entities about having soccer fields. There is a shortage. There's no Little League field in this community. There's been a discussion of that. And for us in Superior, the real key, because we are landlocked, we have limited available space, is to determine our unmet needs. And they may well be a combination of a community center surrounded by playing fields. And so determining unmet needs is the challenge. And if I could really encourage one thing, this has to be an extremely transparent process. It's got to be a process that engages certainly those people near. It needs to engage the Calmontes across the street. The average price that was proposed here, according to the plan, was $395,000 per home, whereas Calmonte, those houses in there start at $500,000 and go up to $1 million right across the street.
Well, they're not houses, number one.
And they're still $500,000 to $1 million as attached properties. And the properties to which they would be contiguous are well over $400,000. So we need to engage the people nearby first and foremost, but we do need to engage this entire community in a very transparent process, because whatever happens there, particularly if it adds to housing stock, and particularly if this economy is in a long recession, does affect all of us. There's a huge number of homes on the market right now in Rock Creek, and so we've got to be very, very sensitive, first and foremost, to supporting, and helping current homeowners maintain the value of their properties.
Okay. Yeah, any
Just gonna
final
address-
comments?
Yeah,
Yep.
a couple, and maybe even pose a couple of questions so I
Yep.
can get a little bit more direction as well. And some of this is good news, bad news, because the market study went on to indicate that there really is a market for about 250 homes in Superior, which is both good news and bad news. There are a lot of communities in the Front Range that would love to hear that people want to move into their communities. So you've got good news in terms of the fact that people want to live in Superior, because there are larger communities that can't do 100 building permits a year. And the other aspect of this, and it really goes to Trustee Williams' question or comment about housing type, which I agree. I mean, I think every community needs to have a variety of housing types. What we then get into, and again, I think we're happy to have this discussion, is smaller. I mean, patio homes tend to be smaller homes, and then we end up increasing the density potentially at the site in order to make the economics work, which, again, happy to kind of dialogue about that. I think Commissioner Pennington's comment is, or Trustee Pennington's comment is appropriate as well, that we do need to engage the neighbors in the communities that are most impacted, because we may hear that they don't want, patio homes. They want $500,000 homes on their backyard.
Right, and that's why I wanted to poll, residents and find out
Sure.
what are the needs.
It's this great balance of trying to accommodate kind of needs. I view it as two things. One is needs and desires. What a community needs versus what a community desires. What do you want to be? And so it continues to be a balancing act. I didn't make a big deal out of this at the outset. It's attached to your executive summary, and that is the financial analysis of the 38 homes coming online, both from a property tax perspective, a sales tax perspective, use tax, all of the water tax. I give this board a lot more credit than making a decision based on $1.5 million. But I attached it because I thought it was important for you to see what the financial impacts of building 38 homes are, not just in year one or year two that the homes are built, but the ongoing impacts for property valuation and property tax, because those numbers actually are a little bit bigger than I was kind of anticipating, and they have kind of a lasting impact. So, there are lots of challenges in terms of kind of looking at the site and figuring out the right ultimate land use. But I think we're trying to address some of both the community's concerns as well as what a developer needs to achieve in order to make it. And I appreciate not hearing anybody saying, does a developer really need to make money on a project? I mean, obviously a developer needs to be able to show a pro forma where they're making money on a project, otherwise they're not going to do it. So, I appreciate the comments and concerns, and we have some direction.
So, speaking of that, maybe I'll ask the town manager if he's heard a particular direction. Do you anticipate meeting some more, or just so that the applicant has some idea of what's going to happen next?
There's going to have to be a number of additional meetings and a lot of brainstorming to see if we can make this work.
Okay, so I think that's fair. So this is obviously rezoning something is going to be controversial no matter how you look at it, and putting a house in somebody's backyard is going to be controversial no matter how you look at it. But I think there's a potential for a win-win. How that actually pencils out, I don't know. But hopefully we'll be able to have some more ongoing dialogue about that, and maybe move this down the field a little bit in the future. Sound fair? All right. Anything else? I think we'll take a couple-minute break then, and we'll start the regular meeting. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees in the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors for November 28, 2011. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Muckle,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elia Gregoris.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here?
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Lisa Skumatz.
Here.
Deborah Williams.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here?
Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Sardi.
Very good. That brings us to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Oh, I wanted to pull, I'm sorry, I
Hanson?
didn't have that open. There we go. It was the extension of the contract for Waste Connections.
See.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be 7C will follow the consent agenda. Any other changes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that change. Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Gregoris. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Anybody want to start this evening?
Sure.
Okay.
I have
Trustee Sorelli.
nothing to report.
Excellent way to start. Trustee Skumatz.
Trustee Hansen, I'm looking down that way.
I have a couple things.
Okay.
I attended a ProStack meeting on November 16th and reviewed the 2012 work plan. It was a really good conversation, and then a good conversation about extending the community meetings that we've started. We did one here with the Original Town in Sagamore, and then we did another one with south of Colton. Going into next year, each quarter, there'll be another regional community meeting, and it's kind of broken up into sections. So north is Sagamore Original Town, central would be Rock Creek Parkway and McCaslin down to Colton, and then south would be south of Colton, of course. So ProStack is going to continue that meeting with the outreach to the community. And then there's also discussion about a door-to-door campaign. Once there's going to be an expert that's brought in that has expertise in coyote management. So there's going to be a campaign that will go door to door in an area that there is a problem with coyotes, and then leaflets and discussion will be had with residents. Attended the Historical Commission meeting, and my purpose there was really just to debrief on the second grade field trip. Everybody was very happy with it. We're looking forward to doing more. So our next steps will be to reach out to El Dorado K-8 and Monarch K-8 and try and get it done as an annual thing for all second graders. So it's proposed that every October, beginning of October, then each school would come through the town, maybe be over a 1-month period of time, but do the same thing. See the museum, come to Town Hall, get a tour of Town Hall and how our town operates, and then get a view of Grasso Park, Grasso Park. And then, the sports bar, new sports bar that's going in. Do we have any information on that? What
As far as when they're going to open, or?
Yeah, and just something about them.
They were hoping to open by the end of December, I think is. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I just received their liquor license today. So he said in a couple of weeks. What they can do is get a temporary license on the other owners, so they can open in 2 weeks and have liquor at that time.
Okay. So
while theirs is being processed.
Full-service bar and restaurant, and what kind of menu and all that stuff?
I don't know. I haven't heard what type of menu, though.
Okay, and that's it.
Okay. Let's see, I think I only had one thing to report, is I had a nice meeting with the superintendent of schools, and is interested in what our concerns are with schools and various issues. I talked briefly. He's a really nice chap and is interested in doing things together with town and actually cities. Perhaps doing some sort of co-contracting for various aspects. So he's very busy right now trying to learn all about the district. But it was a good discussion. Trustee Gregoris.
Are you finished?
Yep, that's all I had.
Well, Trustee Pennington, Williams, and myself had and Beth and Kurt, we went on a field trip today from 5 to 6 o'clock with the Transportation and Safety Committee, and it was actually a great time to go because there's a lot of traffic around that time between 5 and 6, so we got to witness. We went up on the ridge, and Kurt and I walked down the darkened pathway, and the ladies did not follow us. We were assuming they were right behind us, but they weren't. They stayed right on the ridge.
It was suicidal.
So it is pretty scary, actually. So we went on 88th Street and looked at that. Clearly, when you push the button, nobody stopped. Yeah, nobody whatsoever. And then we went to look at the crosswalk on Pitkin by Purple Park, thinking of that, maybe that would be an idea for 88th Street. And we were there, there are no buttons to push actually over there, but there's an island. Every car stopped from every direction, and we were just standing there. Everybody slowed down. We just have to wave them by. So I think, that may be a possibility. We'll talk to Kurt about that for 88th.
Yeah, experiencing that, the difference between,
There's huge difference.
the pedestrian-activated little crosswalk and this pedestrian island that you cross was night and day. I mean, it was just
Right.
amazing to see how traffic responded to each one with a group of people standing there, or even just one person. And we did it over and over and over and over. And, at one spot on 88th Street, nobody stopped. I mean,
Even after it was
No one.
activated.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, even,
Yeah.
well, with it activated, really, it was all we didn't try,
No,
going
Trustee
across
Pennington
without it, but-
started walking across without being activated and their cars coming. So it was, it's pretty scary, especially at night.
But the one on Pitkin, obviously, every single car stopped for us, and we were not trying to cross. We were just standing there. So it was amazing, the difference.
There
We
are
weren't
some
expecting that.
site-specific nuances, though. One is you're on a straightaway coming down 88, while Pitkin curves, et cetera, but I
And
trust,
different type of street.
right,
Well, and one's 35 miles an hour, and the other one's 25.
Right.
So that-
makes a difference.
but-
Okay. Trustee Williams?
Okay.
Where else did we go? Did I miss a place? We also went to Sagamore
Yes.
and looked at some of the corners potentially being painted. We have to rethink that, though.
Well, we need a neighborhood meeting.
Yeah, we
So
really
that
do.
all residents in that area can have input.
I mean, clearly, when you have cars parked on either side and going around the curve, if you have two cars coming from opposing directions, it's very tricky. It's very tight. So, those are not the same width-wise what we have in Rock Creek, so it's really dangerous. So, anyway,
Great.
it was good to go. It's much better to be out there walking around and actually experiencing and witnessing than sitting up here. So, I think we need to do more of that.
Very good. All right. Trustee Williams, anything else?
Oh, yeah. And in my report, it won't be quite as exciting as yours, but I went to a DRCOG meeting, which is Denver Regional Council of Governments. Some people like to call that a very dry meeting. Actually, this one was actually very entertaining. I think Sandy was in the audience, and didn't you actually
That's
find it
okay.
entertaining?
I found it entertaining this time.
For the first time. So we were asked to vote on allowing the TIP funding, which is Transportation Improvement Projects. We were asked to vote whether we could use TIP funds for TOD funds. And TOD funds are transit-oriented development, which are projects that are infrastructure, acquisition of land along major bus corridors and light rail corridors. They are not actually for transportation, they are centered around transportation. So if you're thinking about funding that is only for transportation, and you're now being asked to use it for something somewhat for transportation, but kind of in a roundabout way, it was a very lively discussion, and it was voted down. It was, in my opinion, we were basically robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it was a very convoluted robbing Peter to pay Paul to help Ted and Harry all out, It was, in other words, the money could not be funneled straight from DRCOG, the TIP fund, to a TOD fund project. It had to go in a roundabout way so that the DRCOG board could fulfill its purpose and its goals and what it was set out to do in awarding transportation projects. So that was, a very fun discussion, I thought. I could see everyone is totally bored now, so I'll move on. Also, DRCOG was awarded $4.5 million for a Sustainable Communities Regional Planning Grant Program. And it was through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Department. And so this will be used, let's see, for the light rail corridors. And so that kind of will help in the transportation throughout these corridors for the light rail. Not necessarily building the light rail, but transportation around and through. And we'll move to something a little bit more exciting, because as you can see, I'm losing everybody here. Also, I wanted to find out more information on the RTD issue with the Superior Call and Ride. When do we lose the Superior Call and Ride?
Now it's RTD delayed the service reductions or terminations to, I think, the first part of February. It's not going to be immediate January 1st now. It's going to be like 4 weeks later.
So I understand that Parker is kind of, I talked to one of their council members, and they're looking into subsidizing on their own, not subsidizing to RTD funds, but subsidizing on their own to meet some of the service needs that is lacking through RTD. They were going to lose their call and ride. They had enough angry citizens come forward that they are not losing it after all. So I'm wondering, now they aren't opting out at this point, but they are going to, actually in the past they have subsidized to RTD, and I can't remember what the funds were, I don't know, 85,000 or maybe 45,000, somewhere in the under 100,000 to keep their call and ride in the past. This time they'll be subsidizing on their own. Is that something that we can consider in order to meet the needs of basically more than 2/3 of our residents? Because the 228 probably serves about 1/3 of our community, roughly, I'm guessing. The other 2/3 has no services, no RTD services. So I'm wondering what we can do about that. I understand legally we can't opt out of RTD unless we are committed to going down that route. And I heard in the future or in the past that no one was interested in that.
We could, if the board wanted to propose something like that, we could definitely propose that to RTD. But simply making the offer doesn't mean that they're going to want to continue the service. There may be other reasons for it, other than just us providing additional funding to them. But if that's something the board wanted to consider.
Or resupplying the service.
Another option. That option would have a little more cost to it.
Right. I think we need to look into what we can do for our residents, because I think that this is, in my opinion, and I'm sure many residents will say the same, it's a big hit to our community. It does, and I heard many residents saying, well, I'm not sure I want to stay here if there's no call and ride. So I think there's something that we need to do. We need to do it. we need to do some research and figure out what we can do.
So are you asking for just some research on options available to the board and costs?
That's a good start. Am I the only one?
I mean, it's fine to look into, but the problem is that if we get into the business of doing our own mass transit, that's, would turn into a big capital and operations budget. So, I mean, it certainly would be reasonable to look at, but I'd have some concern.
I guess another thing is, what are some private industry options that might be out there that possibly we can take advantage of? Because as a town, I understand, gaining the infrastructure, putting together the program, executing, et cetera, covering liability is going to be significant. But if we can possibly attract some private industry interest in it and maybe have it resolved in that way.
Just along the lines of the comment I made earlier about the superintendent, that was actually one of the things that he was interested in. I think that they've, where he came from before, there was, I think, a regional transportation district or some equivalent of that where the school children actually got on the RTD bus, and so that there was some cost sharing associated with that and could provide better service. But obviously that's not going to happen before February. Well, so I think it's reasonable, when staff has time to look into what that, back of the napkin capital and operations expense would be.
Okay.
Or is there anything that we can do with RTD that could
Right.
help our situation? I mean, that's another option as well. Maybe threaten them? No.
No, but having a conversation is, if I want to buy back my call-on ride, how much it's going to will it cost me?
Okay.
So,
Probably equivalent to what they think the savings
Probably
are.
whatever the savings are, yeah, right.
Yeah.
okay.
Are you finished, Ed?
I'm done.
Trustee Pennington.
Attended all these same meetings, Traffic and Safety Committee and Dr. Cog and Historical Commission. George, you'll be glad to know that Historical Commission took under advisement how to honor Miss Edith Orman. They're considering this as an option, renaming the board, but they've sort of going to let their minds flow around that one and see what sort of options they can present. She's got some big fans on that committee as well, so they're looking at that. And great kudos to Chris and the Superior Elementary second graders. They absolutely love that program and apparently have had a long-term objective to affiliate more closely with area schools. And we're very pleased with how that met their goal, and they were the ones who suggested expanding it to Monarch Elementary and El Dorado. And so I think everybody was quite pleased and happy with the outcome of that program. Matt, I have a question for you. On the December 12th board meeting, we are going to, a work session, I understand we're going to be continuing to work on the chair's liaison advisory committee.
Yes.
We had some unfinished business from the last one, the selection process. Is that front and center next time?
That'll be front and center, that
Okay.
selection process, and then we can go back to the chart and just try to finalize that.
Right.
Kendra's already put together an ordinance.
Right.
So
Right.
we can maybe review that, and then if we can finalize it at the 12th, then we can get it to the committees.
Well, my understanding is that it was then going to go back to the liaisons and chairs working group to hone it, and then to the committees. Are we still going to do that step?
That, I didn't understand it that way. I thought it was just going to go right back, or go to the committees as a whole.
Yeah, we've never done that before.
Yeah.
Usually it just goes straight to the committee after the board has.
What working group are you talking about?
The chairs, liaisons, working group that took 6 months to get
Yeah,
there
that
in the
dinner
first
we had
place.
with the chairs
Yeah.
of each of the committees. I think that's what you're referring to.
Well, the one in,
That was the whole board.
No, that was.
It was the whole
that-
board, but it was meant for the chairs and the liaisons
Yeah.
of the committee.
Right.
I mean,
But individual-
we have just about every board member's on a committee except for.
Well, my preference, I'll just state my preference, because this is so multifaceted and has so many gears and wheels and whatnot, I don't think it would hurt to send it back to, that, I always thought that was the intent, to send that back for one more vetting process, then to the other committees, and then back to the board for approval. So that's my preference in terms of steps moving forward, and the rest of the board will simply have to weigh in on that.
Sounds reasonable.
I guess I don't have strong feelings about it, but it seems like it's just an additional step, but either way.
It'll take longer.
For something we want to stand the test of time and work out all the
say that.
kinks and
Thank you.
gain total
Where's that one now?
consensus.
I kind of like the idea because we're definitely picking up vibes that committee members are not receiving this completely well, and I'd like to get more feedback from the chairs on that and not go down the road of offending people unnecessarily.
And that's, I mean, if that's,
Okay.
we'd happy to do that.
And I think-
Does the board liaisons, do we want to have the board liaisons there, or just the committee chairs?
Chairs and liaisons.
Which pretty much is the board then.
Right,
Well, and I think the more input, the better.
right.
Okay.
And I don't think we're in, particularly huge hurry.
We'd like to get it done.
Well, we'd like to get it done. I agree. I agree with you, but not at the expense of just slapping it together.
Right. That's all.
Well, it took a little bit of time to get everybody to agree to a date last
You're
time.
right.
So we will try to get it scheduled as soon as possible, though.
Okay. Thanks, Town Manager.
Let's see. Just a couple things from the digest. September sales tax was up 3.5% almost, or more than almost. So that's good. And then we're up for the year about 1.8%. So it's good news there. And with Black Friday, hopefully things will continue in that direction. Let's see.
Can I throw something in?
Sure.
At least, so I just wanted to let you know that the Dr. Cog meeting for December is canceled, and it was supposed to be scheduled on the same night as the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting. So now I'll be able to attend that Open Space Advisory Committee as liaison, so just thought I'd throw that out.
Our finance department received an award from the Government Finance Officers Association for their work on the budget. Again, I think this is their 10th year they've received that award, so just reaffirms the job they are doing. The refinancing for districts 2 and 3's debt went through. That was good. And then Trustee Williams already mentioned the Dr. Cog award.
Great, thanks. Town Attorney?
I do actually have something. The Reapportionment Commission met today, their first meeting, and their last meeting is tomorrow. And
Okay.
it started out well. The 4 maps that they were presented with when they started this morning all had Superior in the Senate District with Boulder County. Everything looked good until approximately 2:30 in a 3 o'clock meeting, and the Democrats came forward with a Senate map that has Superior with Douglas County. Then they decided to take a break and see if they could reach consensus, which I have no idea how a public body takes a break to see if they can reach consensus in the middle of a public meeting. But that's what they did. So they meet again tomorrow from 11 to 3. We'll see what happens. If the map is as bad as the one we saw at the last hour today, we may want to ask nicely if Boulder County would participate in an opposition next time. Because Boulder County was the only split county last time that did not participate. So I'll keep you posted. And there is no opportunity for public comment at all in these meetings.
Kendra, did we reach out to Boulder County when we first went through this
I
process?
did.
And they,
But I reached out to their county attorney's office. It may take somebody at your level. You know, I just asked if they would be willing to participate, and they said they had received no direction from the commissioners about participating. Perhaps if you ask the mayor to ask the commissioners, that we may get a different result. But we won't know until tomorrow at 3 o'clock what map they're submitting, so we don't know whether to object at this point.
So just in terms of the procedure, those maps or a map will be presented to the Supreme Court?
Yes, they have to submit both a House map and a Senate map, one version of each, to the Supreme Court. I believe the deadline is December 6th, but for some reason the commission has set their last public meeting tomorrow.
And then what happens if the court says, yeah, no, thanks for your try, but doesn't come close to answering our questions? What happens then?
That's unclear. This is an original proceeding in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in theory, could adopt its own map, could send it back again. We're not quite sure what's going to happen.
Okay. Trustee Gregoris?
Yeah, this is kind of unrelated, but we just received a text that the town website is down.
Yeah, the
It's-
town website went down about 5:45 tonight, so they're working on getting that fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll keep you informed. I probably will send out an email tomorrow after 3 when they close, assuming that it's when they actually close the meeting and are done and are ready to submit maps, and then we'll have to figure out our next step.
So if it goes to the Supreme Court again, do we have the ability to comment again?
Yes, we will have another ability to file a statement of opposition. I'm not sure if the Supreme Court will grant oral argument again or not.
Okay.
But at this point, other parties, like Boulder County, could also file a statement of opposition. So.
And Kendra, did you say that the Senate and the House could present two different maps?
No,
Or they
I'm
have
sorry,
to
there's
be?
one House map and one Senate map, and they have to submit those two maps to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And the House maps, the last House map, we were still in with Broomfield, but they spent more time today on the Senate maps. So we'll see what they do with the House tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks. Anything from the town clerk? All right, that brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
At the time that the trash section is discussed tonight, will there be public comment allowed at that time?
Yes.
And at the time that the bike race is discussed, will there be allowed public comment at that time?
Additional public comment? Seeing none, that brings us to item number 6, presentations. And tonight we have representatives of the Chamber of Commerce presenting a Shop Superior plan. And welcome.
Thank you. Sorry. Good evening. I'm Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce, and worked closely with Beth as well as Matt on our update this evening, and really on kind of a presentation of our Shop Superior campaign, and thank you for asking about it so we get a chance to share what the program is up to now and honestly what the Chamber is up to. So I'll give you a little preface, and a lot of this was in the memo that you received. But this Chamber of Commerce is in its 12th year, and I am in my now 6th year as executive director. So the knowledge we have here, a little bit has been kind of pieced together, but I believe it is accurate. The Chamber's mission is to strengthen, support, and promote the economic vitality of our member businesses and the community of Superior. Some statistics to kind of get us into this discussion. The Chamber offers a variety of memberships, including nonprofit memberships for any business owner, from a small business owner who works out of their home, where we know there are many of them in our community, all the way up to our corporate, larger, top-level businesses that are here in Superior. As of the first quarter of 2011, which now is coming around rather quickly to redo our numbers, we had 176 businesses as part of the Superior Chamber. 24% of those had Superior addresses, and 76% are outside of the town. And of that 76%, 35% are in Louisville. So just some interesting information that we work with, and obviously as a staff of myself and Pam Lehman, the two of us, gives us a challenge to work within our town boundaries as well as all of our communities that are around our outskirts and how we work together. One note of that, 76% are outside of the town, 19% of those businesses have Superior residents. So maybe it's their executive, one of their executive members is a resident here and has a business outside, or they're an individual sole entrepreneur who maybe has an office just across the street. So background on Shop Superior and kind of where it came from. My information dates back to July of 2005, where an ad campaign was put together consisting of a slide that really kind of did a broad overview of what we had here to offer to consumers, whether it be services or any specifics, whether it be, you know, the Costco's or the Super Target needs that we have on a daily basis. It was purchased by the town and shown at Flatiron Crossing, the 14 theaters, over in Broomfield. At Focus, the ad was basically promoting the marketplace in Superior Plaza. So our businesses here at the McCaslin and Marshall intersection. It ran for 4 weeks and began mid-August and reached approximately 73,000 people over that time. Is what the information we were given. In November of 2006, the town of Superior and Superior Chamber met with a consultant to build what is now known as the Shop Superior campaign. That following month, December of 2006, the Chamber purchased ad space in local papers, namely the Camera, to feature Skate with Santa ads that showcase Superior shopping for every reason, as well as the Shop Superior logo. And you saw those. This is both the ad as well as, and that is the decal that I'll talk about here in a minute, but with the logo that's Shop Superior. In spring of 2007, so a few months later, the Chamber purchased Shop Superior decals with the tagline, again, Superior shopping for every reason, and we began sending this out with an information basically that was from the desk of the town manager at that time, still applies today, that I won't go through the details exactly, but it basically explains what Shop Superior is, why it is a great thing to spend your dollars within the town of Superior. Some basic details from that were 100%, that specifically locally generated sales tax revenues provide 100% of our open space initiatives, that 90% of our capital improvements budget, including streets, sidewalks, drainage, and recreation improvements, are also come from that sales tax revenue. More than 50% of all general fund expenses come from that same pot of money. So at the end, it basically says that $3.50 for every $100 spent within our town boundaries comes back to the community in which the purchase is made. And the bottom line is that if you have a choice between a retailer located here in Superior versus another jurisdiction, pick the Superior retailer and keep your sales taxes in town. That's kind of where we left off with the program. Since then, the Chamber has done kind of a conscious effort to continually inform our members of the program, even though we're in a kind of a gray area where almost, two-thirds of our membership is outside of our town boundaries. Those are investing in our community, and they believe in this community, the residents and the business owners. So what we do is we really try to inform those that have the addresses within the town, whether they're a brick and mortar and have a decal that they can put on their front window, or maybe they are a small business owner that works out of their home. We try to educate them, as well as the rest of the community on where our tax dollars go. Since the creation of the logo and the tagline, we've continued that exact same thing because the money was spent on it. Honestly, the Skate with Santa, which is quite timely because it is Saturday, by the way, from 1 to 3, if anyone wants to join us. We have run the Skate with Santa ads as well as a promotion with Shop Superior. Kind of the Skate with Santa came to be because maybe families would come to the community, whether they live here or not, come enjoy an afternoon of skating that is free of charge. It includes, snacks and hot cocoa and photos with Santa. And then maybe on the way out, they'd either grab some alcoholic beverages at Superior Liquor to go to their party that evening, or stay and have lunch with the family, do some shopping. That was kind of the meld of the two, the event and the Shop Superior campaign. The Chamber fully supports this campaign. We are pleased to kind of champion, I guess were the words we came up with when I worked with Beth on this, the Shop Superior efforts. And I want to call it passive, not in a negative way right now, but it's just kind of a program that we continually support, but it's just kind of on the daily to-do list. Currently, we are, the Chamber has come up with some new tools to help our members to promote their businesses that I believe fit in this category. On our website, we are promoting a new tool that features a hot deal or coupon that you as a member can post on our website, and it might be for a service or it might be for a discount on a product. You can find it on our website, which is open to anyone. And so we're training our members to get on there, to put on their promotions and really create some new, avenues of marketing for themselves. The next step in that process, once we get this really rolling, is to go out to the residents and the business owners to say, did you know all of these hot deals, as they're called, are located on our website? We're working with the town through the newsletter. You'll see a new feature in the newsletter that says, check out our hot deals, and it'll link directly to that page. And then the goal is to promote that in the new year, and that's the goal of the board of directors for the chamber. So, any questions?
Very good, thanks. Questions? Trustee Hanson?
This program, you inherited this program, or is this something that you
I would
started
say
once you?
inherited would be fair, yes.
Yeah.
Tag team.
One of the questions I have about these types of programs is how do you quantify their success or not? Are you able to do that?
That's a very good question. Meeting with business owners and seeing kind of what their feedback is the way I would say, does it work, does it not? But right now, since it's kind of a passive, it's a very delicate balance. I guess in the end, to answer that question, I'm not sure I can quantify it.
Okay.
Trustee Skumatz?
I don't usually see quantification other than the hits that you gave us, so that I don't think it's adequate evaluation either, but it seems to be all that you ever get out of advertising campaigns, so despite barcodes and everything else. But in any case, I cut out an ad for you that was about shopping small also, that happened last Saturday or something?
Correct. Yes.
That was an interesting thing that you might maybe consider in the future, sort of as a combination thing, and maybe also the shopping green that comes out periodically. So maybe next year it could be even if you're looking to revive it in a slightly different incarnation, some of those things might be something to take into account.
Thank you.
Trustee Pennington?
Heather, how do we educate residents about the value of keeping their dollars in Superior? Seems to me like if we drive it this way and make them loyal to shopping in their own community, choosing Target over Walmart, for example, and keeping their money here, how do we educate residents?
I think it's an ongoing process. Honestly, it's an ongoing process for the chamber to make sure that the residents know that the Chamber of Commerce exists and that we're here to act on behalf of the businesses, whether they're small or large, and really come to the community as one whole supportive system. We have a few ways to reach out to the residents, as well as obviously the town does through the newsletter. So I think it's a continual education process. And maybe an incentive.
I like that blurb that I think Scott may have written.
Yes.
I thought that actually brought home the benefit, the tax benefit of keeping your 3.5% of every, $3.50 of every $100. I thought that was interesting. I've read it before. It's come my way somewhere before. But I would see that as something that would be useful to have in the newsletter. And I know, Lisa, you prepared a couple of years back something that talked about the benefit of just that, and maybe if we combine those efforts and actually put it in the newsletter again.
And we also include basically a snapshot of what businesses are in town with that exact town manager note to all new residents as we deliver their new resident packet on their door. So that is included there as well. It's on our website. So it's just a continually, but any new ideas would be greatly appreciated.
Trustee Skumatz, then Trustee Williams.
And one of the things that I thought, it was interesting what you said about the taxes, and I think the thing that I forwarded also had to do with taxes, but I think a more compelling message might be how many jobs it helps save in our local community. I think that would resonate more than sort of, gee, help your town, with tax money. So I have to believe that there are local multipliers that we could use to do that, and I think that would be a way stronger message than the tax message alone.
Absolutely.
And I'll piggyback on that, that it could also help your property values. That might be a direct drive home. I also kind of remember, and I think it was Louisville, but I'm not positive, it could have been Broomfield, that did a shop local banners that they put up on their main drag streets, Main Street, and I don't know what other streets there were. But I thought that was effective because I noticed it, I thought about it, and
Turned around and came back to Superior?
I did. You got that right. I did do that. No. So I'm wondering if that's something that we've ever looked at.
We've never discussed. I don't think you don't have any banners, do you? I mean, I don't think we did. You produce some?
Not specifically, no. There was an effort, I believe it actually go back to 2005, where the sidewalk sale concept was presented as a marketplace theme, that we had a banner that ran over McCaslin. But nothing directly, it wasn't not yard sign campaign or anything like that.
And I think these were on light posts, is what I remember them being. Yeah. But, I think it's effective and it's something that we should look at.
Trustee Pennington?
Heather, we've talked about this in EDRC. The number of home-based businesses we have in this community is, I think, fairly large compared to the size of the community. And I'm not sure how much under the radar these businesses choose to operate and how many would like to be bigger and more public. But to any degree that we can actually assist home-based businesses who want to operate in the public eye, actually have a vehicle for telling us what services they provide, so that, for example, graphic arts, printing. I know we have a resident who just bought Minuteman printing or whatnot. To the extent we know these things, then we can choose to use the services of some of these, sole proprietors, et cetera. So to me, that would be very beneficial to know who these folks are.
And your example, sorry to cut you off, but your example of Minuteman Press, they are chamber members.
Mhm.
So that's our avenue of really trying to get them engaged in what is it they need to have their investment in the chamber pay off in their business. And that's what we are there to do as far as the chamber and help them in that process.
In your opinion, what's the impediment to home-based businesses becoming members of the chamber? Is it price? Is it they fear coming out? What's the deal?
Coming out of the closet.
There might be a little bit of both, honestly. From the few that we've brought into our specialty business groups, we have a great mompreneurs group, as we call them. Moms who are working from home and also providing, but taking care of their families at the same time. So we bring them together quarterly to just have gatherings on different topics. There is no chamber membership required for this group. We have a few other groups that you do not have to be a chamber member to be a part of. A mastermind group is really holding each other accountable for goals. So for a home-based business, honestly, Sandy, I think it's the knowledge of them knowing that these opportunities exist, and that's one of our challenges as a chamber, is to continually, again, educate.
But mompreneurs aren't in your chamber book, are
Not most of them.
Unless
a few
they're
of them
a member.
are. A few of them are,
Okay.
if they're a member, correct, in our
So,
directory. So,
to the
yes.
extent that these people want to do business with the public, I'd love to see a list somewhere, somehow, that we can look at the services they provide, whether or not they're a member of the chamber, actually.
yeah.
I don't care if they're a member of the chamber, you do.
Right.
But I don't. I just care about helping home-based businesses thrive and possibly move up to that next level of an employee and
Correct.
maybe 2 employees and 3 employees. So however we can help them, because we have so many, I think it could have a nice impact.
Great idea.
And I'll look forward to the executive directors on Channel 8 could interview local businesses. Be interesting to see if there's enough interest in that, so
Thank you.
might be one way of getting it out. Thanks so much. Thank you for all your efforts. Appreciate it. That brings us to item number 7, the consent agenda. Remaining on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the October 24th, 2011 Board of Trustees meeting, acceptance of the minutes of the Historical Commission, the Open Space Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee meetings, and adoption of a resolution approving a triennial continuation of the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council and approving the First Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement establishing the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council. With that, I'll entertain a motion by Trustee Gagura, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion. I think we're spending $1,000 a year, so.
Okay. Cirelli?
Yes.
Gregores?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Buckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Skumas? Yes. Williams?
Yes.
Great, thanks. That brings us to what was C, adoption of a resolution approving an extension of an agreement with Waste Connections of Colorado, Inc. to provide residential trash and recyclable collection services. Trustee Hanson, I know this is yours, but maybe the town manager could give us a general brief of what this is, and then Trustee Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. The town currently has a contract with Waste Connections to provide trash and recycling services to the subdivisions of the Ridge, Sagamore, Calmonte, and Original Town residences. That current service is $9.95 per month for weekly trash and recycling pickup. At the last town board meeting, the board requested a 3-month extension to this contract to allow additional time to survey those residents that receive this service to determine what type of service they would like. We discussed with Waste Connections, they were open to extending it for 3 months. This is an amendment to that contract to extend it to March 30th, 2012 at the current rates.
Great, thanks. Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before we extended it 90 days that there was a conversation with them and that the pricing that they quoted is going to stay the same. So we're not going to put ourselves in any jeopardy if we extend it.
Yeah, the pricing, they said the only thing that may change with the pricing that they submitted was a fuel cost, an additional fuel cost, depending on what fuel prices do in the next 3 months. But they've been going down, so I'm optimistic that.
So it'll probably stay the same, or somewhere close
Yeah.
to it. And then we don't have to wait till March to
No,
to agree. So we
no,
could do it
this
sooner.
just allows us that time.
Okay, and then I guess the next step is to do the surveys and reach out to the public and all that.
Correct, yeah.
So I'd like to see a timeline, and I'd like to be a part of that process too. When it comes time to go door to door, I'd like to be involved in that.
Ditto on that.
Trustee Pennington?
Lisa, I had asked at the last meeting whether or not RCAC would be willing to do this, to go to Original Town Sagamore and survey them in some manner. Have you had the opportunity to chat with them?
We have our next meeting in next Thursday, and
Okay.
so we would decide then.
Okay. So you feel they're definitely willing to do it?
I have no doubt.
Okay, good.
Trustee Cirelli?
This is a question for the town manager. If you you've already reached out to Waste Connections about extending their offer for 3 months. How about the other offerors? Are they contacted about extending their offers?
We have
Or are those offers still valid that long?
There was no commitment by the other companies, simply because we had already entered into negotiations with Waste Connections, so we didn't receive any commitment for that price.
Because there was at least one other company that potentially was offering a service that was of interest, so we should know whether that might still be on the table.
What is our standard requirement of an RFP, though, in terms of the length of the bid?
I don't believe there's a specific language on how long the bids were good for.
Trustee Skumas?
So I have 2 comments to make. One is that I think all our RFPs should say that they should declare that they're good for 90 days. Every RFP I respond to has to do that. So I think we should include that in all our future RFPs. And 90 days is pretty standard.
Right.
Okay. And second, on the other proposal of potential interest, staff followed up with that company, and there's no long-term guarantee if they will deliver the yard waste to a diverted site, they may, at some point, in fact, deliver it to the landfill, which is not what we would be after. So, right now, they're not looking very positive unless they change that stance.
The Republic?
Yeah.
Okay,
But there are still the two others.
great, thanks. Public comment regarding this issue?
Gladys, 4404 South Third Avenue. There has been a lot of controversy about this trash, and I'm wanting to know about having a meeting with the town manager and the town board regarding the problems with this trash, regarding the conflict of interest. Is that possible to have a meeting?
Do you want to go into some more detail?
There has been massive conflict of interest regarding this trash issue. Now, this is the second time that I personally will be affected about this conflict of interest. A few years ago, Bruce and I had a massive discussion about the conflict of interest regarding the trash issue. At that time, I backed off of filing charges because of the conflict of interest. So one, I'm wanting to know if town manager and town board would be interested in having a meeting discussing that with me.
This is as good a time as any, I guess.
It will take more than 5 minutes, and you don't want to take that time period.
We can't schedule, I'm sure the town manager would be happy to sit down with you sometime. I don't think the town board could schedule a specific time to hold a special meeting. But that probably would be the best step.
Is that possible, Mr. Town Manager?
It is.
You'll call me tomorrow, or I'll call you tomorrow to set a time?
Sounds good.
Additional public comments about this issue?
I'd like to make a motion. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
Pertaining to this trash issue,
What is all this?
I've talked to several people in town, like turning a light switch off and on, let's shut the light switch off. We're happy with what we got. The people that do have yard waste use it in their gardens, and there's about 2 in the original town, or 3, that have big enough garden, or lawns to use in their gardens. The rest of us have little yards. We don't need this service at all. So please give this consideration. Why are we wasting our time, taxpayers' money, that people don't want? Thank you.
Thank you. So just to be clear, this is just a way so that we have trash services
Yeah,
while
for
we're
3
having
more
further
months.
discussion. So we're not changing anything tonight. It's just a continuation of what we're currently doing to have further discussion. So
Yeah.
with that, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee
I'd
Gregory.
like to make a motion to approve adoption of a resolution approving an extension of an agreement with Waste Connections of Colorado, Inc. to provide residential trash and recyclable collection services.
Motion by Trustee Gregory, second by Trustee Hansen. Thank you. Let's see. I think we're probably sort of spending money. I don't know.
No, it's just
Not
an
really.
extension.
Okay. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. That carries, and we'll have on discussion after the new year. With that, that brings us to adoption of a resolution approving the agreement with Boulder Racing to host the 2012 Superior Morgul Classic Cycling Race that potentially would be renamed. Thank you, Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask Martin to come up and introduce the team that we've been discussing and entering an agreement with. This work that Martin's put together and this partnership is based on the discussion the board had at their July 25th meeting, and we sought proposals to seek out a partner and promoter for the race, and I'm happy to say that I think we've found a good partner for this race. Martin?
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, Martin Toth, town staff. As Mr. Magley described, staff is proposing working with an outside firm to host the Morgul race next year for 2012. This is a follow-up to the discussion, the debrief session that we had with the board on July 25th, where we had a chance to discuss some of the options for coordinating the race in the future and looked closely the option of working with a professional race promotion firm to host the event going forward. So we have a presentation we'd like to review, touching on some of the main points that were covered in the cover memo that you received as part of your packet materials. The main items that are listed here on the slide I'd like to go over. Present an overview, introduce the team, go over the format and how it's changed, talk about the event components and what next year's race would look like, and talk a little bit about the plans and marketing and sponsorship outreach and then what it'll look like for next year with this kind of format. I'll get things started and then I'll hand it off to the folks from Boulder Racing to go over some of the details, and then we can try to answer any questions that you might have. First, I'd like to introduce the team. Lance Panagudi is here. He is with Boulder Racing. He'll be in charge of marketing and media. Tony Panagudi, behind me, in charge of registration and operations. And serving as race director, Brian Lazinski is here also tonight. You recognize him from the first 2 years of the race. He ably served as the race director for the 2010 and this year's race. And then also helping coordinate this effort, we have Sergeant Jim Chamberlain, who has helped immensely with the traffic control both last year and a little bit the year before, and then coordination among the jurisdictions to make sure all the public safety entities are working together. And then also here is the Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Heather Craycraft. She worked tirelessly last year and the first year to help make this race happen. And she's helping this team strategize just kind of how to handle sponsorship and marketing outreach and where to pick up pieces where we left off last year. So it's great to have her as part of the team. And then also here is Patrick Hammer. He serves as the town's recreation manager. He was absolutely instrumental in coordinating the details of this year's race. And has helped put this proposal together and has worked closely with Boulder Racing over the last couple of weeks to put together what we feel is a real strong proposal to provide a successful race event for next year. So moving to this next slide, what we're proposing for 2012 is to transition responsibility for hosting the race to a professional cycling promotion firm to produce the race next year. A couple of the considerations that we'd like to highlight include the fact that the race has become an established event in the American Cycling Association calendar. It's one of the biggest events in the state and has quickly taken traction in the cycling race world just in the 2 years that it has existed. It's for all the reasons that we've talked about in the past. It's got a remarkable history and a strong tradition that was already here before we started this, and it's really taken off since then. And we've heard a lot from folks who participated in the race, both even on the same day of the race, that came up and expressed appreciation for hosting the race and wanted to know that it was coming back in the future when the plans were going to start. So it really has taken hold as part of the bike racing world as a premier event. The budget impact. We talked a lot about the budget over the last several months, and one of the main, most salient points in this discussion is the fact that it cost nearly $200,000 to host an event like this, and we didn't have the sponsorship offset and the registration revenue to ever realistically think that it would be self-subsidized. So finding a way to transition to a solution that required less budget investment it was a big part of this discussion, and this option presents that. Part of the discussion when this event was first proposed was the idea that it would eventually segue to an outside entity. There wouldn't always be a town-hosted event. And this proposal gets us there this year rather than I think we'd originally discussed 4 years. So this would be year 3 rather than year 4. And with this proposal, it would also continue to provide one of the core goals for considering an event like this, where we have a regional draw for folks to come to town, is to continue to increase the positive awareness of Superior. And also find ways to retain the great community participation and volunteer involvement. We had literally hundreds of volunteers participate and play key roles in this event the first 2 years. And so we'll look for ways to continue that, continue to integrate that into the race as it moves forward. So with that, I'd like to introduce Lance Panagudi to go over the rest of the slides in this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt.
Great, thanks.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. My name is Tony Panagudi with Boulder Racing. I think I speak on Lance and Brian and myself. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you all tonight. Just continuing on with the slides. We've received feedback from everybody on the Memorial Day weekend that there's a lot going on with the town. So one idea we had was to move it to the weekend before, continue with the same 3-day format, less impact on the police, other town services, and the town citizens and businesses in general. We feel it provides a great 3 days of racing versus last year's 2-day format to go back to the 3 days. With just less impact to everybody. Going over the courses, we would still like to utilize the same criterium course on Saturday and the same Morville course on Sunday that the race has done for the past 2 years. So all the courses, and we're proposing to keep the same. To add a opportunity for non-racers to enjoy the event as well, we'd like to add a citizens wave this year. Either late morning, early afternoon is our proposed time frame on Sunday for a citizens ride. Basically, the citizens ride would just be we would be timing it, but it would be a non-competitive one lap in the Morville course. Change of the name, as you can see, we've proposed a new look and feel of the logo, changing it from the Superior Morville Classic to just the Superior Morville. And this year, we would, instead of the Friday night street sprints, we would like to propose a time trial on Friday evening, starting around 4 o'clock and going towards dark. The start location we're proposing would be just outside of Key Equipment Finance by that entrance on McCassin. Finish location, like you see, is Highway 93 and Marshall Road. Not very impactful for the businesses, and we would, mitigate the impact to the residents as well. Said time would be between 4 p.m. and 7:45. You got to have everybody be able to finish before it gets dark out there. Racers would start, and we're going to play with this, every 20 to 30 seconds, depending on how many people we have pre-registered for the race. They would be going off individually, so one person every 20 to 30 seconds. It is a race against the clock individually, and we'd also like to do a team time trial as well, to bring in clubs and other teams into, they can race individually and also do a 4 or 5 person team race. So they would be going off as a group, 4 or 5 people at one time. It's a very unique and challenging race as a time trial. Everybody's seen the hill out there. It's definitely not flat. And I think with the time trial, you're not only going to attract people that are pure cyclists, but you're going to attract the triathletes as well, simply because they're more used to a time trial format on their races. So you bring a different aspect to the race, different athlete, and just boost up the population of the race and the people competing in the event. The proposed time trial course would not require any road closures. We would keep McCassin open. We would keep, and we would stage the police so that they would mitigate the traffic as well. All access in and out of residents would be open at all times. This is a proposed time trial course map. You see it starts outside of Key Equipment Finance. These are the proposed locations that we discussed with Jim on the course. And then the end up there.
Can I ask why it wouldn't require road closure?
Simply because of the format. So if they're individual, they're going off individually instead of as a group, and they're required to remain single file so they can utilize the bike lane. Any other questions on the time trial format? Or? So they would start out here in Key Equipment Finance. Obviously, there'd be a police there. They'd head through that roundabout with another police stage there. The hill, they go right on 129 here. And this is actually working with Len Marquez, and we've decided to end right before the park, at the trailhead there, Greenbelt Trailhead, and not continue up on 93 here. So.
Okay.
The Saturday criterium would be the same location and course as you guys have used in the past 2 years. It seemed to work great. Cyclists loved it, and the general feedback we've gotten from everybody in the town, it was a workable course. Time again would be races would be going all day long, beginning at 7 a.m. and the last race would end 5:45, 6 p.m. Races, again, depending on the categories, the age of the racers, would be anywhere from 20 minutes to 60 minutes in length. Let me touch on the ACA and USAC. So last week there was a recent vote between the ACA and USA Cycling, the national governing body. The ACA has voted to rejoin USA Cycling as a local association. So it would be sanctioned this year under USA Cycling, given more of a regional presence, with the ACA being the local association and governing the event. We are again applying for the same BARBAT, which is best all-around rider, best all-around team for the race, giving the race a higher level of prestige within the community. Again, the same crit course as last year. The Mobile Road Race, we're going to be the same. Time, races will be going between 7 and 3 p.m. Distances would be 1 to 6 laps, again, depending on if you're a junior rider or up through the pro ranks. Same format as last year. And then again, the Sunday race would be sanctioned with the USAC and the ACA under the BARBAT format as well. The possible national race calendar for pro men and women. With this recent vote between the ACA and USA Cycling, it gives us the opportunity, unfortunately not for 2012, but for 2013, to bring a national presence to this event. If we applied for the national race calendar, it would allow us to invite pro teams, semi-pro teams from around the country to participate in the event. And new for 2012, we would like to implement the Citizens Ride, the non-competitive lap of the Morgan course on Sunday for people to enter. And here's the Morgan course. The race start by Community Park, heading up the wall 128, down 93, Marshall Road, and then back and finishing up at the top of the walls again. Traffic plan and resident notification. The time trial, we'd like to get the course approved by February 1st. Like I said, we've already been working with Len Marquez on the certified traffic plan, presenting it to the police department. We've already gone over with Jim the initial traffic plan. Resident notifications, letters mailed out 2 weeks to 10 days prior to the event, letting them know times, race, route, and also if they had any questions or comments, notifications where they could call. Information in town newsletters, and also posted signs, again, 10 days prior to the race, the new notification signs. Summit criterium on Saturday. We would have to work with the Summit HOA, again, to approve the course by February 1st. We've increased the number of course marshals as part of the traffic plan, just to allow more ease of use for businesses and residents access in and out. Resident notifications, we'd like to have the Summit HOA to include it in their letters, notifications. Again, we would post the signs and also mail letters out to all the residents in the affected area. Mobile Road Race, same thing. Traffic plan would remain the same as 2011. Increased presence of the course marshals at determined locations, and different improvements to deploy the state patrol on motorcycles to keep the riders safe at all times. And again, the same resident notifications through the town newsletters, email blasts, mailings, and the notification signs throughout the town. Medical. Obviously, we'll have on-site medical support at all 3 races for the safety of the riders and as a backup for any spectators as well. Location of the EMS support would be both at the start-finish line and also roving as well. So we would like to have a roving patrol out on the course. Communications, all EMS will be in direct communications with the race team, sheriffs, and we will have a designated medical coordinator on site at all times for each race. Basically, this is what we've done to date. Planning team is in place and mobilized. Myself, Lance, and Brian, as long as all the town offices. Traffic control plan has been revised and reviewed by the sheriff's staff. We're working out the final details on those before you send in for the formal permits. 2011 sponsors, some of them have been contacted. We met with Heather to go over all last year's sponsors, 2009 sponsors as well, and have started reaching out to those in the past. The dates are secured on the ACA calendar and also will be on the USA cycling calendar as well. Chosen activities have been identified with rentals, to be reserved come the new year. Website is currently being updated. Most of it is up and live, so you can see it. Save the date ads, announcements, and the competitor, the Keeper Edition, which is Colorado's go-to magazine for 2012 events, as well as 3OC Cycling. Reach out to them for advertising and other industry-specific publications, both online and in print. Once final approval is given, we can say, we would like to make an announcement on our Facebook page, on our website page, and through our email database on the new race dates, the race specifics. We've also we're developing a zero waste plan. Is initially been developed. It's not finalized yet. We're working with EcoCycle on specific locations and the recycling plan for this year's event. Upcoming tasks, obviously December 1st, we would like to look to make an official announcement. Registration, it was initially thought to open registration on December 1st. That still could be a target. We might look to move that to December 15th, however. Final logistics for the time trial, the crit, and obviously the Superior Mogul race. And we would need to host the traffic control plan with Colorado Department of Transportation and the State Patrol as well, given the application submittal. Sponsorship outreach, as I touched on before, has already begun, and would continue on given the outcome of this meeting. Volunteers, obviously the race needs a lot of them. The more the better. This year we would like to incorporate an online volunteer platform. So Volunteer Hub or Volunteer Spot are two we've worked with in the past. It would be posted online, so residents, clubs, teams, anybody could go online, see the different places where they can volunteer, the different time schedules, and the days, and the required list of duties. They can sign up right online, or they can contact us as well directly, and we can put them into the system. This eases the communication, gives a viewable platform of what's available, what the duties are, what the time slots are, and also us contacting with all the volunteers throughout the race. Cycling clubs. We work with a lot of cycling clubs throughout the state to host races. As part of being an ACA club, it's one of their requirements to either host a race or be involved in volunteering for an event. So this is another aspect that Boulder Racing can bring to the table is all our club affiliations hopefully would volunteer. We can contact them to volunteer for the event. Other local organizations, churches, volunteer groups, anybody, community service, schools, honor students, we've all worked with in the past and would like to reach out to see if they'd like to volunteer and get involved with the event. Also with the help of the town, reaching out to the community and, like I said, schools, present them to get involved. and learn about the sport. And last year, I guess they did cycling team presentations with the schools. We'd like to see if, some professional cycling teams in the area would like to do that again. Teach the students about the sport, get them involved, bring them out to the race, see what it's all about. Does have any questions?
Great, thanks. Trustee Skomas and Trustee Gagos. Trustee Williams.
Thanks, and I missed your name again, I'm sorry.
Tony Penny.
Tony, thanks. Thanks for your presentation and for the group, and I remain a big fan of this event, and I think I'm thrilled that it's become visible enough to make it sort of part of the state and whatever notoriety and all that. I'm glad it's a noteworthy event on the calendar. And I have I really like many of the changes you've made. In particular, I was a big fan of having something where citizens could participate in a good way, and I think I'm not sure if you want them to be going uphill or downhill, but anyway, we can talk about that, okay? Anyway, or whether there's a little, tow rope or something. Anyway, but I think it's a great plan to allow this is a really interesting way to participate in it. And the time trials sound like a great way to bring more people in, so that was a really clever ad as well. I had only 2 comments that I hope that you take into account as you move forward on this. And one is, I had trouble with the website in the past. As a citizen, trying to figure out what was really going on, I had a very hard time figuring that out in the past. You had to know a lot of lingo and all that sort of stuff, and it'd be great if you could follow the word like children or citizen or something like that and get to what there is for those folks to get involved. And the other thing is, I think that the awards ceremony always had a little bit of an issue, so that might be another target area where you look at and figure out a way to make it gel better. But other than that, I think the plan looks great, and you have my full support.
Thank you.
Trustee Gagos.
Yeah. Love the logo. It looks great. Shortening of the name to Superior Morgul is great, too. I think the Citizens Ride is a wonderful idea for those who are not bicyclists to recognize how difficult this is just to go around once.
Yes.
If they can survive with that, that's a great idea. Moving at a weekend before Memorial Day, I never liked Memorial Weekend because it's just so busy with what's happening with Boulder. Obviously, the weather in Colorado in May is tricky, but hopefully we'll have good weather. So the one question that I had, a couple questions. One of them is, you said you expect 50% of the sponsors. Is that a realistic number?
Sure.
What do you base that on, I guess?
Basically, we base that on Lance handles more of the sponsorship for our companies. We base it on our past, our past occurrences. Whenever we've taken over a race or taken over a new business, it's generally been about a 50% ratio.
Okay.
I would love to see 100%. It'd be fantastic. And that's why we always like to reach out to all the past sponsors, say, hey, here's what's going on. We'd love you to be involved again. Come back on board. Some people love it, jump right back on board. Some people hesitate. And some people are like, it just wasn't worth it for us, or this isn't the direction our company is currently in right now and where we'd like to go. So stuff changes with them, especially in this economic environment. Stuff's always changing. So
And
it's just been
expanding maybe to potential new sponsors that have not been part of the Morgul in the past?
Yes,
You do that as well?
I mean, we work with a lot of sponsors that haven't been a part of the Morgul.
Okay.
So we obviously would reach out to them as well to be involved.
And then one last question. What's the thinking going from 2 days back to 3 again? Because we've tried both. We've tried 3 once, we've tried 2. What's the idea behind that?
The idea is to make it more of a stage format. The Superior Morgul is the largest race on the calendar last year. It was a great race. We would just like to continue that and also offer a third discipline of racing. So the time trial is one discipline, the criterium style, and the open road race format. Brings it more of a stage race presence, like you saw with the U.S. Pro Challenge.
Okay.
In a mini format with this.
I mean, you have my support. I think you have the board support. This is a great race. We're really glad you guys are going to be involved in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Williams and Trustee Pennington.
Thank you for the great presentation, and I'm really excited to see the changes that you've made. I think most of them sound like a positive from the years before. I'm wondering when you have the citizen race, or not race, just
Citizen ride.
the citizen ride. I mean, when is that, after or before, a different day?
We were looking to do it on Sunday. And we were talking earlier about doing it midday, so around noon, late morning to early noon.
So the citizens would be riding with all the other participants?
There would be a break in the racing. So,
okay.
say one category would finish up, and then the citizens' wave would go off. And then once they were done, then the racing would resume.
I see, okay.
Don't want to make it too hectic for them out there.
And you'll account for those that are real slow?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to know about is the, I don't want to call it a festival, but the entertainment component. How are you integrating that?
Sure. Last year and the years before, it's been it's been a festival and a bike race as well. Our focus is on the bike race with the festival, I guess a smaller festival presence. The expo, like a large expo, beer gardens out there again as well. Jumpy castles, all that stuff. More tailored around the bike race experience. So everything would be brought in closer. Instead of having two separate events, it would be focused all around the bike race.
Would that be all 3 days or 2 days or 1 day?
The time trial wouldn't lend itself to anything else except for the race, just with the point-to-point. It would be focused around Saturday and Sunday, around those 2 days.
Go ahead.
Oh, speaking of the time trial, it's Friday evening. Are you concerned about Friday traffic?
That's why we're looking to move it, the start up towards Key Bank there, to allow McAllen to be open, not affect the residents in Old Town or the businesses in town. With the traffic, we're still working on the final details of it, but it is a concern of ours, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, is it going to go until like 7:45, you said?
Yes.
So is the sun going down by then?
8:13.
8:13 is
Yeah.
You're right, is it? Okay.
the sunset.
All right.
Unless
Then you're good to go.
there's
All right.
Trustee Williams.
A little history, there's been,
Sorry if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, just hit the mic.
Brian Lazinski here, and previous race director. So, the history, we've done a time trial that has used McCaslin for cycling events in the past numerous times in the last probably 10, 12 years. So it's happened a few times. The only difference on this one is to alleviate any kind of potential traffic concerns on original town, where the start's been right outside of town hall here. We're going to move the start on top of the hump right outside Key Bank.
So Brian, you've done that on Friday night?
Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, we've done it with storms rolling in across, and it's worked. We're working through logistics on the traffic circle. That's the newest piece of it. But fortunately, you have this beautiful bike lane the whole way, and of course makes a right-hand turn onto 128. So you're not really impacting any kind of right-of-way traffic, except for maybe the Ridge condominiums. So we'll have a good marshal presence there. But otherwise, I mean, it's pretty much a pretty easy course to do, especially when we're starting at Key Bank, and we'll start right after that entrance, even where it's almost like 5 lanes of road there. So
that's good.
Take that one turn.
Do these riders ever spill? I mean,
yeah, we had a crash last year, and they
45, 50 miles an hour.
I mean, fortunately, the racers go the same direction as traffic, and when you have the police presence on there, it does something to, I think, the traffic itself. It slows them down as well.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's more aware, like, wow, there's something going on, especially when they have a guy in a tuck. But again, the beauty of the time trial course is you have a pretty wide bike shoulder. I mean, one of the widest ones we have around in the county. So,
We want no headlines in the next morning's paper. Cyclist killed.
Sure. Well, I honestly...
From inattentive female driver.
My biggest concern is the Memorial Road race, and just seeing how successful we've been with that in years past with traffic control. That's where that's where my concern lies. But it's, it's been well executed with, thoroughness and planning for that with EMS, so been lucky so far.
And then I have a question for Martin. Martin, could you walk through, the contract says up to 30K investment from the town of Superior, not to exceed 30K. So where do you anticipate those costs will come from? What are we paying for?
The agreement is, if you think back to the previous years, it had a lot more pieces that were services provided. This is
Right.
something more along the lines of a sponsorship or a partnership agreement that we do with entities like the Superior Mustangs or Rock Creek Flyers to use town facilities. This is a little bit bigger and a little bit more broad interpretation of a facility partnership agreement. So the town's partnership, in addition to our time and energy in helping with some of the logistics and coordination of the different pieces, is also to be a primary financial sponsor or contributor for this event, and to have significant town name recognition, both logo and name and website presence. So when people see the Morgul race, they see the town and associate the event with the town. I don't want to call it naming rights, but it would be something akin to that.
So what I'm interpreting is this: we're not going to write a check to the new race promoters for 30K. Or are we paying for certain services outright? That, for example, traffic management. Are we covering that cost outright, or are we giving a 30K donation to the race promoters?
The payment's broken up into two halves, and we'll make those payments over the course of the next couple of months, and once the new year starts. But it's not a fee for a service. There's not a direct relationship between the dollar amount and provision of a service. We're going to work out the details of what makes sense logistics-wise, and if there are some items that make sense for the town's contribution to directly be used towards those specific items, whether it's parking control or perhaps a children's play area or something that makes sense to be called a town-specific element or a component within the event. We might try to identify that to have some name recognition.
I guess
similar to a sponsorship.
I was sort of thrown for a loop when I read the up to. If you said 30K is our share, write the check, it's our share, it's our contractual obligation to the race itself, and we write that check. But I got confused when I read the up to.
Yeah, I apologize for the confusion. It's the standard format that we use for our agreements has that
Oh,
language,
okay.
and we change the number amounts.
And how many staff hours do you anticipate are going to have to be expended towards our, the services we provide?
I'd put it in the neighborhood of a couple hundred, maybe 250, between myself and the recreation manager, and then potential hiring of the volunteer coordinator, and then also coordination with the Parks and Open Space Superintendent on logistics, fence installation, and making sure all the sites where the race is hosted look as good as they possibly can. So between meetings and the planning items and logistics, and then just handling some of the detail things that come across our desks, I would put it in the several hundred hours, not in the thousands that it was in the past.
Yeah, and that was my next question. How does that compare with last year?
A lot less.
Like a 10?
Probably about, it would probably be about 15%.
Okay.
Maybe across the board. I'd conservatively say we probably put a couple of thousand hours across the board into this.
Trustee Skumatz.
I'm just, just reflecting on the use of a term. It looked like this was a contract with two payments at the end, 15K, 15K, that sort of thing, generally. But then I'm reflecting on the terminology that the person used, and he said something about taking over the race. I wanted just to make sure that this race still remained Superior's race, and next year, if we decide to run it a different way, we can do that, or whatever. We're not handing over the name or the whatever for anything other than they're running it for us this year, sort of?
That's exactly correct.
Thanks.
Yeah, the town is the location of the race, the facility of the race. But it might be easier to think of it as a license agreement, maybe for a year.
But we hope,
Yeah.
with the success we hope to have, that it'll be an annual.
The finances are great.
Yeah.
It's
It
a
would be
positive
something that
arrangement.
comes to the board annually.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Just like any other agreement we've seen.
Good question.
Thank you.
Trustee Hansen.
If there was one thing that we could change, if it's possible, to get more spectators at the top of the race, or the top of the course, at the finish line, and something else for them to do up there. If we're going to continue to have the awards given out there, it'd be nice to keep as many people up there as possible and give them something else to do while they're waiting for racers to come back around. And then, quick question, with the criterium, I forget where I heard this the other day, that the summit might possibly be putting in speed bumps through there. And has anyone else heard that? And if so, how's that going to impact?
I did too. I could clarify a little bit of what I heard is they're considering doing something because they have a speed issue in their area, but they're trying to have as little impact on the criterium as possible because they strongly support it. So that's the last I had heard about that. I don't know where they've gone since, that was a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know what they've decided as an HOA. But
something we might want to look
somebody
into.
in the audience that can enlighten us on that. I don't know.
That could put a damper on things.
Yeah, that could be an interesting challenge or an interesting wrinkle to add to the course.
Extreme criterion.
I was under the impression that it was an exploratory discussion item. I wasn't aware that there had been anything finalized. But yeah, it would be something we'll have on our radar screen. The Summit HOA has been a great supporter of this event from day one. They've been great to partner with. It's been very easy to work with. We appreciate it.
And now I remember where I heard that. The woman sitting next to us in the HOA meeting was on the board of directors for the HOA. And her comment for the summit was they weren't going to do anything as of now, and they're looking at other options. They are hoping that that's like the absolute last resort because the entire community loves sitting out and watching that criterium. So I wouldn't worry, at least not yet.
Okay, thanks.
But it could add a little excitement to the criteria.
It could.
There you go. Public
Make it more
comment
interesting.
regarding this issue?
Oh, wait.
Gladys Horsey, 404 South Third Avenue. One, I want to educate presenters that we are known as original town and not old town. And let's keep that original town. The other thing, the surveys that I circulated and that was returned and was documented. But, two things. One, I want to make sure that the presenters understand they are not wanted in original town for this race. Move it a block north. Stay out of original town off of Coal Creek Drive. The other thing is, you have totally ignored those petitions that we turned in before the race last year. Now, they still apply, but you, Mr. Mayor, totally ignored them. You did not share them with the town board. They have never been mentioned at all. Those petitions clearly stated that race is not wanted on Coal Creek Drive in original town.
Just to be clear, so anything that I've ever received regarding this has been shared with the board completely, so just in case there was some miscommunication there regarding that particular issue. Additional public comment?
Hello again, Heather Craycraft, Superior Chamber of Commerce, as well as a resident. Just wanted to give my full support to this team. Extremely excited about them. I think I wrote in a few of the introductions on email to our sponsors that have been part of the past that we could not be handing this to a better group of people. These three gentlemen and the team they've put together they believe in this event. They would have not come forward to be part of it. They know the concerns of the community as well as the business owners, and we're in close contact, so whatever role the chamber needs to have, or me personally, I am there for them. So I just want to let you know that it's in good hands, and I think the community should be proud of this event.
Could I ask you a question? So the specific businesses that seem to be impacted the most are, Starbucks, Land Rover, the hair salon, which I can't remember the name
Form
of that.
and function.
Thank you. And they
And our
obviously
new
have been
premium bass guitars. That would be
Oh,
our
are they
new
open?
business over there. Yes.
Is it open yet?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. They're
Safeway.
obviously going to be.
And Safeway, correct. Absolutely.
So they're going to be aware of this, and do you
Yes.
feel they feel comfortable that they're they won't be too impacted and people will be able to access their services?
The team has already begun the discussions and tried to meet with them, but yes, they're absolutely aware, and that's why I continue to stay on the side with them. If there's any ongoing discussions or more communications that we can help with, absolutely.
Great.
So I do not see any red flags, and again, they're taking caution to that and know that their access into those businesses, both in the village and on Colton Crossing, is extremely important to that whole day's event.
Yeah, so whatever we can do to, facilitate their being present outside the fences or whatever, I would be open to looking at that. So maybe it'd be even a marketing opportunity for them.
I would agree, absolutely.
Thanks. Additional public comment regarding this? Trustee Williams?
So I have two more questions. I was wondering if the town receives any revenue from this race?
No.
No.
I mean,
Only indirectly.
in the
Indirect-
People
that-
will be spending a lot of money within.
In the past, when we were, hosting the event ourselves, that any revenue that came in, we would offset our costs, but
Correct.
this year, no.
Okay. The other thing is, I was wondering what kind of weather could completely cancel this race?
A big snowstorm.
I mean, in other words, it's pouring rain. Are you
Yeah,
going to...
Brian Kosinski, race director. So pouring rain, it goes.
It goes.
Races happen all the time in wet weather. I think snow would be the only one issue. If we woke up and we had 12 inches of snow on the roads, it'd be an issue. Fortunately, around here, that time of year, the ground's warm, so even if it does snow, it melts off pretty quick. We've had events in the past where we've had collegiate races are usually dealt in the spring, and we've had criteriums in the morning where, sure thing, we woke up with 3 inches of snow, and we've spent a half hour shoveling, and we've delayed everything by an hour, but everything's melted off. You do have wet roads, but races are on. I mean, it's commonplace. All the flyers say races, rain or shine, and the Colorado racers used to it. That it can happen, but granted, we have beautiful weather a lot of times, so we're pretty fortunate.
Thanks.
Trustee Skumetz?
Just wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, any other questions?
No, I was
Okay.
going to do the same thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Trustee Skumetz?
I'd like to make Town of Superior Resolution Number R-51, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement between the town and Boulder Racing to host the 2012 Superior Morgul Cycling Race.
Motion by Trustee Skumetz, second by Trustee Gurgurus. Discussion? Phyllis? Yes.
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 Williams?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Gregorius?
Yes.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Thanks very much, and looking forward to an excellent event. I think it's going to be great and getting better every year. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 9, adoption of a resolution for Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 to certify delinquent water and sewer accounts to the county treasurer for collection. Mr. Magley?
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution allows the district, Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, which is our water, sewer, and storm district, to ask the county clerk to put a lien on 2 properties that are several years past due on their payments. Our utility billing department mails out past due letters to these accounts monthly with no contact being made to the department by the individual account owners. So our next step is to pass this resolution so we can ask the county clerk to lien the properties of these 2 properties. One is for storm drainage fees, and the other one is for water, sewer. And let's see, anything else? We typically collect past dues by turning off the water, but one is a storm sewer, so we can't do that. And the other one, the water's been turned off already, and it's been off for some time. So we don't have any other avenues to collect these past dues. So.
Okay, thanks. Board questions?
Yeah.
Trustee Williams?
Are these residents?
No.
Or property, or commercial properties?
No, they're residences.
They're residents. In 3.5 years, I've never seen this before. This is odd to me.
Well, I mean, typically, we try to collect past dues in other ways, but we're left with no other real avenue to collect these dues, because one's a storm sewer account, so we can't turn off their water service, and the other one,
Correct.
the house has been vacant for some time. I believe vacant, right? Yeah, vacant.
And this is, just so you know, this is a common practice with other municipalities. All of my clients do this. At this meeting, I can tell you that the same time of year, most of my clients do a delinquent certification.
And this isn't something that the town manager is authorized to do without board approval?
No.
No. So we've never had to do this in 3.5 years.
5.5 years.
5.5 years, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the counts are several years past due, and it's just gotten to a point where we're getting no response, so
Right.
we're bringing it forward.
Is there a cost to the town of asking the county to do this?
No, the county collects a penalty, but that penalty is collected from the property owner.
Okay. Trustee, are there public comments on this? Or?
Well, so that would be the question, any public comment regarding this, and otherwise board action. So I guess my only comment regarding is everybody should play by the same rules, and they got to, pay when they can, and if you can't pay, then got to pay the piper, as they say. So
Okay. Want
Trustee
to
Gregores?
make a motion? if
Sure.
it's- Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, Resolution Number SMD-1-9, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of the Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, directing the Secretary to certify delinquent water, sewer, and storm drainage accounts to the County Treasurer for collection.
motion by Director Gregora, second by Director Williams. Further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 10, executive session to consider personnel matters pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, paren 4, paren F, regarding town manager's evaluation. That'll entertain a motion to go into executive session by Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. We're in executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.